And then during the presentation, we just ask that you remain muted, and then we will have a question and answer section. And then at that point, everyone's welcome to unmute, and we'll talk through asking questions in the chat or raising your hand. But just for the presentation, because it's being recorded, it's helpful if everyone stays muted. So again, thanks for joining us, and I'm going to turn it over now to Eric Iverson.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully you can all hear me okay. I'm going to assume you can. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I'm Eric Iverson. I'm currently serving as the interim chief of staff for our mayor and council here at the city of Tempe. And we appreciate you joining us here today for this important public meeting. Just want to let you all know there will be another public meeting this afternoon or this evening at 6 p.m. down at our public library. So spread the word for those that can't make it today. We're here to talk about the proposed tobacco ordinance in Tempe. This is a dialogue that has been happening for about 1.5 years in Tempe, and this is our next step in that process. So we hopefully will get through this presentation pretty efficiently and be able to have a good Q&A time period at the end of the meeting or at the end of the presentation. So with that, I think I'll go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So I think a lot of folks are aware of this, but the whole genesis of this particular endeavor at the city has to do with supporting our youth in the community. The council was interested in some actions and some strategies that would support their performance measures that you see here that are related to improving the health of youth in our community. Next slide. And these are the things that we wanted to share with you all today. So I just wanted to kind of run through a quick agenda, kind of the flow of the presentation. Obviously, I'm not going to introduce all the staff that are here, but we have representation from many departments at the city that are critical for the success of a program like this and have been instrumental in developing all the documents and information that have gotten us here to this point. We will then we want to share with you, a little bit of the summary of the background of this project and how we got here, and some of the documents and actions that have happened statewide and in other cities and in the federal government that are supporting and helping to guide our progress here in Tempe. And then we want to review the specific action that our council committee that is led by council members Navarro and Garland. It's the Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee. We want to review the specific action that they took in January of this year, of 2023, and what that means and what we're proposing and the details of that. And what they are proposing is increasing the minimum age to purchase tobacco products to age 21 and starting a licensing and fee program for tobacco vendors. I'll go into more detail about what that means later. And then we want to go through what our next steps are in this process. So obviously we're going through a public involvement element right now, and that will include both these public meetings that we're having today, any smaller stakeholder outreach that needs to happen, and online forum questions that will be active live today. We then the process will go through our council committee again, and then we will go back to the full council after this public outreach is done. There'll be public hearings and then of course an implementation phase. Next slide. So a little bit of background on this. I would assume that a lot of the folks attending today have been involved in this project since its inception, but for about 1.5 years, the council has been looking at the possibilities surrounding tobacco and a little bit around the issue of tobacco and its relationship to vaping, and what could be done, again, to help achieve some of those council objectives, those council performance measures that are really looking at trying to decrease drug use and improve health and safety of our youth in our city. So the conversation started 1.5 years ago. We then led into smaller human services and community safety committees. There was 4 of them listed here that had a really robust conversation about this topic and what could happen in Tempe. Next slide. And then 9 months ago, last summer into fall, there was more public outreach and community dialogue about tobacco, just getting a lot of feedback on what could happen, what could move forward with a proposed ordinance. And then in January of this year, as I mentioned earlier in the earlier slide, the council committee that's led by council members Navarro and Garland did advance a first step, if you will, a little bit more of a foundational step for addressing this issue. And that was, again, to look at elevating the age requirement for tobacco purchase to 21 and establishing a licensing program with penalties for violations. Next slide. So getting into some of the history of what the national government has done, as well as what our state has done, we wanted to provide some background information. This has been shared at the other public meetings that we've had heretofore. Federal government started weighing into this in 2009, starting to regulate sales of tobacco as it relates to youth. And then the FDA modified that, raising the federal age limit for tobacco purchase to 21. That was signed in 2019. And next slide. Getting more specific into Arizona and what's happened in Arizona. So Arizona is one of the few states that actually does not maintain a tobacco vendor registry, so a licensing program for all tobacco vendors. And then we wanted to provide a little bit here. I'm not going to go into all these explanations, but the reasons why you would set up a tobacco registry, and those really get to sort of the reasons why that we would want to regulate tobacco and the sale of tobacco to youth anyway. Next slide. Drilling down even more specifically, here is information about what certain cities in Arizona have passed that augment or complement that federal law, and might go further than what the state is doing. So Tucson and Flagstaff, of which we are following really closely and really modeling a lot of what we're doing and what we're proposing to do in Tempe, they have both passed tobacco licensing ordinances that we're exploring right now, and they both have passed elevating the age to purchase tobacco to 21. Cottonwood, Douglas, and Goodyear, all Arizona cities, have also passed ordinances to raise the age requirement to 21. Next slide. And then we want to share a little bit about how some cities are enforcing these ordinances. So you can see here what Flagstaff and Tucson are doing. The other three cities that I mentioned in the previous slide, they do not have an enforcement or licensing program. This is what Flagstaff and Tucson are doing. Flagstaff having the most strong enforcement program. Next slide. And then again, third time we're mentioning this. This is what Tempe is proposing. So we want to reiterate that. That's what we're exploring right now. Is increasing this minimum age for tobacco purchase to 21, and then establishing a licensing and fee program for violations within our community. I'll go through the fee structure at a later slide, but just this is based upon all the information that we've seen at the federal level, statewide level, and partner cities or other peer cities. This is where we landed for Tempe's proposal. Next slide. Yeah, thank you. So how would this program be managed in Tempe? As I mentioned in the first couple of slides, there's a team of folks from different departments that will be engaged in this. The ones that will actually monitor and manage this program are listed here. So we worked with and continue to work with our city attorney's office on the ordinance itself and guiding the rest of us on how we move forward. Tax and License will maintain this program. They will maintain the database for all tobacco vendors, and they will be the ones that would issue licenses as well as fines to any violations with those licenses. Police department would work hand in hand with our Tax and License office for enforcement. This would be a response-driven enforcement program based upon complaints. And we want to mention, as I mentioned in earlier slides, that we'll continue to monitor what the state does. We have a new governor. have a new attorney general. There may be changes with what the state does and as it relates to tobacco. And we want to keep our eyes on that and make sure that we're in line with what they're saying, but also maybe if Tempe is leading the way, there might be future possible partnerships with federal agencies to help with the support of this program as it relates to monitoring it and running it. And then of course, our city council is going to, this is an important matter for them. And they're going to continue to look at, assuming if we get to the point where we implement these two things, they will monitor the data, they will monitor the performance of the program and consider future possible modifications to the program, going further in the way of regulation of sales of these types of products to our community. Next slide. And these are, I touched on this briefly, but these are the fees and the fines that are associated with this program. We look at the other two cities that have done similar programs in the state, Tucson and Flagstaff. We're really matching largely what they are indicating in the way of license fee. You can see that $300 annually. And then for violations, you know, if a vendor is selling underage, that would be a violation. You can see what the first time violation, assuming it's verified, what that first time violation fee is. And that it increases, of course, as you go through, if you have multiple violations, all the way to where you would have a potential revocation of license. And next slide. So our next steps. We are going through the public process right now, having this meeting today. We have another one this evening. We will have an online forum where we're accepting online comments. There's a whole host of questions that we ask online about this topic, and we will be accepting that comment until the 3rd of April. We will bring back all the information that we hear from you all today and on that online forum and other ways that you communicate with us. I know that we received comments over the weekend and last week related to this topic. We will share all that information with the council for them to consider future, at future meetings, how we move forward with this. So we get through that public process in the next couple months. And then we go back to the Human Services and Community Safety Council Committee. We're looking at an April or May council committee date. After we go to that council committee, it will go to the full council. There could be refinements all along the way, but we take it to the full council. We're looking at a May-June timeline. We don't have an exact date confirmed, but we're looking at a May-June for this to go back to the full council for consideration. And then pending that council consensus, we then go through the regulatory process of posting for an ordinance change in our community, which involves online postings as well as 2 public hearings at a regular council meeting. Those would happen likely deeper into the summer. And then after that whole process goes through with this proposed ordinance, implementation, assuming it does go through, implementation occurs after that. And so that would be sometime in the summer, late summer, early fall, that we would be looking at implementing this particular program. Obviously, we'll be in full conversation with the public and stakeholders throughout this entire process. And then once we get to the implementation phase, there would be continued observation of the performance of the program and continued dialogue through council committee and with our council to explore the possibility of future possible additional actions that might happen with this particular matter. Next slide. And this is the website that we have for all the information associated with this program. This presentation, as well as the full ordinance draft, will be on the website. If they're not already right now, they'll be on some point today before the 6 o'clock meeting. And with that, we wanted to, again, thank you for being here, and then open it up to questions that you all may have. And we have representatives from different departments that might jump in to answer questions that are specific to their particular area.
Thank you, Eric. So again, feel free, if you have questions about what's proposed, you can place that in the chat, or if you raise your hand, then we can also call you on you in that fashion. And I did drop the link to the comment form in the chat so that you can also go online and provide your feedback that way. Okay, Claudia, if you want to go ahead.
Yes, hi, good morning. Claudia Rodas, I'm with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. I want to thank you for laying out this information and following this important issue over the past year and a half. We're one of those groups that you mentioned that have been following and trying to been engaged at every part of this process. I heard, Eric, you mentioned that there's going to be further evaluation of trying to see how the words you put it, like further evaluation of the implementation of the ordinance, I think is the way you sort of put it, or the way I understood it. I don't know if this is a question more than a comment per se, but this ordinance, when it started in November of 2021, and along the process, started around both a licensing and an end to the sale of flavored tobacco products. And after 18 months was being presented in front of us is just partial look into this. And so are you, or are we allowed here to make comment? I know you're proposing this as a Q&A, but are you also taking comments to come back to City Council and the committee to say that we feel a little shy around this? Like, we've engaged and we've continued to communicate, and the goal of this is really to, from what I understand, is to address the youth opiate and alcohol and marijuana and other products that youth are using. But yet there's this take from City Council that's taking a big piece of the policy that will address that. So I guess my question is, if we were to make these comments, is that what you all are doing to compile those? And if so, please share that. Our concerns from, I'm representing the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids, that a big portion of this is looking to address the exact goal that you just laid out 18 months down the road, really takes a big chunk out of doing that. With that, I don't know if there's anything to comment back, but I hope that that's relayed back to City Council.
Certainly, I'll just jump in. Claudia, I really appreciate those comments. And we would definitely share this comment, and I would encourage you to go on the forum and write comments there as well, so they see that. I know that the two council members are wanting to hear everything that the community is saying, and they want to, everything I've heard is that they are very thankful of the folks that have been so engaged and are really, folks like yourself that are really trying to support efforts in our city that are improving the health and the quality of life for our children. And so I know that there has been a long process, and my understanding, I can't read the council members' minds, but they certainly feel like this is this was an appropriate first step based upon everything that we heard, and really quite candidly, some of the real divisive elements of the dialogue that had happened in the last 6 months. This was a good, strong first step for them, and they want to then pursue this. And again, assuming this goes through, and we don't know if this will go through, but we think the council, what we heard in January was that they felt this was a good first step, and they will continue to look at the future possibility of implementing further measures, like you mentioned, like the flavored tobacco and vape, some of the banning dialogue. Those types of things would certainly still be on the work plan for that council committee, but that this was the first step at this point.
Okay, and then next we have Joseph.
Well, thank you, Shauna and Eric. Just for the record, my name is Joe Uhas. I'm with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. I'm a colleague of Claudia's, and I'm a 27-year resident of the Valley, and more particularly, I am part of the Flavors Hook Kids Tempe Coalition. I don't have any questions. Frankly, after more than 8 public meetings on this issue, I think I'm pretty knowledgeable about this issue. But I do have some comments. And again, I just want to make sure I understand. You're asking for questions, but do we have an opportunity now to submit oral comments?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay, great.
And maybe just though, to clarify, because as Eric mentioned, for those comments to be recorded correctly, we would ask that you fill out that online comment form. Because we'll record this meeting, it'll go online, but just to make sure that's included in the public input summary.
I appreciate that. And of course, I'll do that.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Of course, I'll do that. So I do have some formal comments that I've prepared, and I'd like to, again, submit them for the record. In considering the enactment of a tobacco retail license ordinance, Tempe leaders, you and everyone on this call are recognizing that there is clearly a serious problem with underage smoking in the community that needs to be addressed. Tempe is awash with tobacco retailers, 154 and growing. Until recently, Tempe officials didn't even know how many tobacco retailers there are in the community. Tempe officials didn't know the number of tobacco retailers in Tempe that are nearly 10 times more than the number of McDonald's and Starbucks combined. Tempe officials didn't know that over 25% of those retailers are within the prohibited distance limit of schools established by city ordinance. Tempe didn't know that 53% of Tempe's 154 tobacco retailers have been cited for the sale of tobacco products to kids over the past 5 years, many on multiple occasions, and one an appalling 14 times. Why didn't you and other Tempe leaders know? It's simply because of the absence of a licensing requirement, as was pointed out. Arizona is one of the few states that does not have a tobacco retail license requirement. Only because of the painstaking research of the Flavors Hook Kids Tempe Coalition is that data now available. Now, like it or not, perhaps to the consternation of some in City Hall, and most certainly to the dismay of Big Tobacco and their local allies who peddle their products, the Flavors Hook Kids Tempe Coalition has proven itself to be a subject matter expert on this issue, presenting facts, data, public support, and frontline testimony from healthcare professionals, educators, child advocates, parents, and most importantly, kids, that this is an epidemic that demands a comprehensive approach. Licensing is critical to the proper enforcement of any meaningful tobacco sales law and regulation. Yes, creating a licensing requirement in Tempe is called for and is supported, but to do so has to also mean recognizing that it is one part of the overall solution. We need both licensing and restrictions to a flavored tobacco products to address this critical and detrimental impact flavored tobacco products are having on increasing tobacco addiction among Tempe youth. On the city's website and the post for this very meeting, it was stated that this licensing approach, quote, could be the first step in a more comprehensive ordinance that would include product restrictions. In fact, the initial draft of this ordinance included during this process, this comprehensive approach in its language. Simply put, this comprehensive ordinance remains a must. Flavored tobacco products are fueling the youth nicotine addiction crisis, and it's time after 18 months for Tempe to take action, as hundreds of other communities across the country have done. Further delays in aggressively tackling this grave public health concern will not only lead to greater cost in dollars, but more importantly, lives. Restore the language in this proposed licensing ordinance to include an end to the sale of flavored tobacco products, as was part of earlier drafts. And if for whatever reason that doesn't occur, then commit to the enactment of a companion flavors ordinance, because the time has come, and some may say has long passed, for Tempe leaders to address the ultimate question. And that question is this: whose side are you on, Big Tobacco or our kids? Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Okay.
Joe. And before Shauna, I just
go
want to make one comment to that. And I heard this from Claudia too. I just want to say that yes, this has been a long process. And I have, myself have not been involved the entire time. But what I do want to say is that I'm hearing from folks that want to see us go further. And I, the council is going to make that determination. But what I will say is because of all the work that has been done, we have that. We have draft ordinances. We have a lot of research. So any next steps that happen, we have sort of a, really good foundation to build from. So I want to emphasize that the work that's been done so far is not lost. And those efforts that on with all the different opinions that went on with this particular ordinance and these proposals, that information is still out there. We have that. We can hit the ground running were the council to take further action. I just wanted to make that statement.
Okay, and Nicole, you had your hand up next if you have a question or comment.
I do. Thank you. I'm Nicole Olmsted. I'm with the American Heart Association. I am the Government Relations Director. I am also a Tempe resident. My kids go to Tempe schools. My husband and I both work in Tempe. And one of the things that I noticed that has maybe evolved or changed is that in terms of the enforcement of this ordinance of the tobacco retail license, the city of Tempe is proposing to do this as a complaint-driven process. And throughout all of these conversations, we have both offered to walk folks through how the actual inspection compliance check process works. We have a wonderful model at the state level on how the compliance check process works. And complaint-driven compliance doesn't work when it comes to making sure that the products are not being sold to those under the age of 21. So I think I would really like to understand, not only in my role that I am with the American Heart Association, with a lot of data, and evidence behind us, but also just simply as a Tempe resident, how do you actually intend to catch people who are continuing to sell to those under the age of 21 if you are not inspecting them?
Thanks for that comment. I think it was Nicole that I'm not.
Yeah.
I think it was Nicole.
More of a question than a comment, but
yeah. Thank you. And I'm going to ask. I think there should be representatives from our police department on here. Maybe someone from tax and license that can jump in and provide information. Nicole, part of the reason why we're here today is to get feedback on what we're proposing, and so this particular matter of enforcement and what our team does internally is something that we are still discussing. We want to hear from, and I know that you've likely weighed in on this at prior meetings, but we wanted to hear what people's feedback was on what we're proposing. So yes, we are at this point putting forward a response-driven enforcement. A lot of that has to do with kind of we're not sure of the volume of work that will go into this. We're not sure of some of to Joe's point. We're discovering things daily on this and learning a lot and trying to get better and better, of course, at doing the best we can with this particular endeavor. But we are proposing, as you mentioned, the response-driven enforcement piece. And that is what was manageable, we felt like, based upon all the, the different activities at the city and our staffing levels. That's what we felt like was manageable as our first approach to this. It does not mean that's the stopping point, that we wouldn't go further 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the road. We think that there's some budgeting questions for staffing levels that need to come into this dialogue. And we wanted to gauge the importance from the community, from stakeholders of, how much effort goes into that, And so that's partly why we're having it as a topic on the, with the forum and with these public meetings. Is there anyone from PD on here? I don't see other participants, so I apologize. PD or tax and license that wants to add to my comments.
Hi, Eric. This is Josh Buys, tax and license manager at the city of Tempe. Excuse my voice. But no, Eric, you said correctly as well. We're in the beginning stages of this process again, if you will, and really trying to map out as best as possible how we're going to implement and enforce this ordinance. That was one of the major challenges we had in the previous iteration of the ordinance, was the enforcement. So we're going to take our time and decide what those best practices are. As you said as well, there are staffing issues that need to be figured out, and how we can make that all work with the teams that we do have in place, in particular with my team with tax and license on the administration side of it. So this is just the beginning. We're formulating plans as we go with each meeting and the input that we do receive from the public and then the committee as well. We will have those obviously all ironed out by the time it is voted on by council, and we'll have a plan in place.
Eric, can you hear me?
Yes, Kim, we can hear
Yes,
you.
I can.
All right, perfect. This is Commander Kim Hale with City of Tempe. And one of the things that we will continue to do and throughout this process is we partner with the Arizona Attorney General's office with their counter-strike program. And they do bring their program into Tempe. They do take enforcement. So we do plan on continue that partnership with the Attorney General's office. Part of our idea in helping to enforce that is through a partnership with the Attorney General's office. But in addition to that, if we're receiving complaints about an establishment, then we can go out and we can check compliance based on a complaint basis as well. So I think that as we know, last year the Attorney General ruled on well, it might have been a couple of years ago. Anyway, he ruled that the Arizona law is what the Attorney General's office enforces, and it would not enforce federal law based on the age of 21 and under, or based on 21. And so if we're getting complaints that are specific in nature, especially that they're selling to people under 21, and the Attorney General's office does not want to enforce that, that's where we can then step in and look at being a little more proactive in the enforcement of that. So I don't know. I hope that answers the questions. We're not going to leave the partnership with the Attorney General's office. It's a continued partnership with them, but we're also going to have to develop a complaint process with the community. Does that help?
Yes. Nicole, you still have your hand up. I don't know if you had wanted to add anything
No,
else.
it's just because I am challenged on Zoom. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
That's okay.
Thank you for that comment and question.
So then I'm just going to keep going in order. I do see your names in the chat if you want to comment. So we're going to take you in order there. And Amanda Gray, you are next.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity to provide some feedback today on this topic. For the record, I'm Amanda Gray. I'm the Executive Director of the Arizona Petroleum Marketers Association. We represent gas stations, convenience stores, and fuel distributors across the state, and of course, in the city of Tempe. Convenience stores in Arizona process over 2 million transactions every day, and roughly 1/3 of in-store revenues come from the sale of tobacco and vapor products. So this is a hugely important category for these stores to remain open and viable to provide essential fuel and food services to Tempe residents. Our members take their role as responsible retailers of age-restricted products very seriously. They train their employees to check ID. Some even do secret shopper programs or ID scanning at point of sale to keep the age-restricted products out of the hands of underage individuals. We've long supported a statewide approach to increase the age of purchase, to do retailer licensing, and to enact uniform statewide regulations for tobacco retailers. That's been a struggle to get that achieved at the state capitol. But we've also, over the years, had concerns about product restrictions, including bans of certain products like a flavor ban. Bottom line is that we see a flavor ban as being very ineffective given the proximity of Tempe to other cities and tribal communities where drivers will stop, and when they buy their preferred products, they're also going to fill up their gas tank, shop for their snacks and drinks. And so all of those sales are going to be lost to Tempe retailers. I did want to point out there was some discussion in the slide deck about what is going on in other cities in Arizona. In the city of Flagstaff, while there is a licensing program that is on the books in Ordinance, there has never been a process created for retailers to obtain that license. and no fee set for retailers to pay. And to my knowledge, no enforcement of that ordinance. Since our members would be the subject of the proposed regulations, we very much want to stay engaged. It would be helpful for us to be able to provide meaningful input to you if we can see draft language in advance with adequate time to gather feedback. Like 2-ish weeks would be fantastic. If we have time to, run the traps once we see the actual language, that would be very helpful on our end. And I appreciate the opportunity to continue to work on the issue and provide input today. Thanks.
Thanks, Amanda. And I wanted to mention the ordinance itself will be posted online. The draft from our attorney's office will be posted online. And so I'm assuming that document would be what you could use to formulate your comments and questions that could be sent to us or dropped into the website, the forum that you see here on the screen. So that should give you what you need to weigh in.
Appreciate it, and we'll definitely provide feedback in the forum as well. Thanks.
Thank you.
And the ordinance is online both as proposed language and then in a red line version, so you can see what was changed. So both are available now.
Thanks, Shauna.
Yep.
Thanks.
So Brianna Miller, I have you next.
Thank you. So yes, I'm Brianna Miller. I am a health policy specialist at Children's Action Alliance. We are located in Phoenix, but we do advocacy throughout the whole state. And for those who aren't familiar with our work, we work directly with communities statewide that are the most impacted by pervasive health inequities. So our goal is to realize an Arizona where all children can thrive. So as an organization concerned with the health and well-being of children in Arizona, we do support this proposal for establishing a tobacco or seller's retail license. In considering the enactment of a tobacco resale license and ordinance, Tempe leaders are to be credited for recognizing that there is a serious problem with underage smoking in the community that needs to be addressed. So this does reflect the same concerns presented by the Flavors Hook Kids Tempe Coalition and Children's Action Alliance at all 8 previous public meetings that we've spoken at. We are, however, we continue to be concerned that a tobacco license without an accompanying comprehensive flavored tobacco ban does not go far enough in keeping these harmful products out of the hands of Tempe's youth. A retail license alone isn't a solution, but a tool, and alone, again, won't go far enough to keep Tempe's kids from a lifetime of nicotine addiction. According to a poll back in December 22 that the Flavors Hook Kids Tempe Coalition conducted, 61% of voters favor an ordinance to end the sale of all flavored tobacco products that can appeal to youth. So given that there is broad support among the Tempe community leaders and organizations, it is imperative that the Tempe City Council put back in the restriction to tobacco flavored products. We look forward to continued dialogue on this issue on enacting a comprehensive ban on all flavored tobacco products, and feel that further delays in aggressively tackling this grave public health concern will only lead to greater costs in dollars and, more importantly, in lives. We know Tempe has been and continues to be a leader on this issue, and we just don't want to let this become a missed opportunity to prioritize the health and well-being of Tempe's kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Floyd Galloway, we have you next.
All right, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. My name is Floyd Galloway. I'm with the Tobacco Free Kids and also Flavors Hook Kids Coalition, Flavors Hook Kids Coalition in Tempe. I'm also a Tempe resident. First off, I want to thank you for the ordinance that you are proposing. I think it is a decent first step. Like I said, a decent first step, not the finished product, because one, I would like to see the fines higher, because I don't think $500 is going to really make somebody with sales, who, I don't know, hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars in tobacco products really change their way of doing business. So I would like the fines to be higher. Two, as this would be a first step, as Joseph and Claudia noted, I believe that it needs to have an ordinance that bans all flavored tobacco products, because Kids have a opportunity to engage in tobacco products, and through the opportunities because of the flavors. There's thousands of flavored tobacco products out there that is attractive to them, and so if you pull those products away, then I believe that they would not be enticed to use those products. Also, how many tobacco retailers do you need in the city of Tempe? Because I understand there's another proposed tobacco retailer just down the street from me. As Joseph noted, there are so many tobacco retailers in this city already. You can go probably just on a regular street, a block or two, and find another tobacco retailer. How many do you need in the city of Tempe? And it has been a long process. And with further delay in enacting, I'll say, a comprehensive ordinance that bans all flavored tobacco products, including menthol tobacco products, lives will be affected. Either the lives will be lost, they'll have different health issues, and not only will it be health issues, it will be an economic issues, not only for the family, but for the community. And in the community, the African-American community, over 45,000 African-Americans have lost their lives each year because of tobacco products. And it must be an action that is taken now to end that process. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Floyd. I know, I just want to jump in here. I don't know how many other folks are queued up to speak. We wanted to try to keep it to an hour as we advertised. And so, Shauna, do you know how many more? Because I just want to maybe try to put some time constraints on the next comments. I don't want to, stop people from being free about expressing what they want to put out there. But just kind of a heads up, I guess. And Shauna, do you know how many more we have?
Yeah, we have about 4 right now, and
Okay.
so we can make our way through them. And again, for your comments to be written, we would ask that you fill out the form, or you can put them in the chat. We'll save the chat here for those of you who already made comments in there. Then it's written in your words as well, so we'll have those.
Okay.
Mark Miller, you're next.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I represent the Arizona Food Market Alliance. We're celebrating our 80th anniversary. Our mission is to support our statewide government for all of our retailers, including grocery stores, convenience stores, and a small amount of independents. And we appreciate being part of the process. The city has done a really good job, the city council, of keeping us communicated. And we really do value that we're a part of the process, and we want to continue to be part of the process. Just a couple comments. Again, I think I agree with what you initially said, Eric, and that is that this will take more time and it'll be more expensive than you can imagine. The city of Flagstaff was a good example that their intentions were to get a licensing, but it requires a lot of resources and software, and it takes a lot of time and commitment from the city to be able to do that. And the other one that we've talked about several times is enforcement. That it is part of the licensing, but again, it's the same thing. If you're going to utilize your police department, I really think that they're going to have to commit to more resources, and those aren't going to be easy to find. They're having a difficult time throughout all the states of finding the law enforcement agents that they have. The comments that I will make is I think that we, as a big group of convenience stores and grocery stores, have really stepped up and done a really good job of training our people. If one of them does get caught on a sting or any type of internal sting that they do, and they do sell, in most cases, they are fired from their job. So there's some pretty severe consequences from that. again, the only thing that I would also add that in your whole presentation, you didn't really talk anything about education to students, to teachers, to retailers. There wasn't any part of education in that plan at all. And I think anytime that you want to overcome something that's an issue, you have to start with that. And again, a statewide solution would be our preferred way to go. It's consistent. It can be just like, I would advise you to reach out to the liquor control director and ask how they are doing it and how they are controlling it. But they have, I don't know what the exact number is, but it's a lot of people that have to do the licensing and control it and the renewals and the cost, and it's complicated. And the other thing I'd like to close with is that we really believe that we are doing a good job in our national and statewide retailer. We are checking IDs. We have the processes in place to use the driver's license as the form to secure that someone over 21 is purchasing any of the age restricted products. But if they're still getting them at high schools, where is it coming from? If we're doing a really good job, and we believe we are, where else could it be coming from? Is it coming from the internet? Is it coming from other cities? Is it coming from their brothers and sisters? Have you done enough research to be able to, when you put this in place, what is going to ensure that you're going to be successful? And I think you have to kind of determine that as you get started. And again, we would recommend you do start slow. The flavor ban has been discussed, and we understand the city council heard our points is that, not now, maybe in the future, but what you've taken into place with your licensing and your enforcement is going to be a big project. Thank you for allowing us to speak and be part of your stakeholders group. We really value being part of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And I just want to mention that one of the slides talked about monitoring of data, and that, council and staff would be looking at the metrics of how this particular ordinance change would, if enacted, perform. And so a lot of that feedback you just gave is good for us, because we need to determine exactly what we will be monitoring. And so that's good feedback. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have Bernice Carver next.
Hi, my name is Bernice Carver. I live in Flagstaff. I have family down in the valley. I'm on this call, very interested in trying to help reduce the number of kids that become addicted to tobacco. I did send an email to the council with 2 links about heated tobacco products and a study that was just done in Osaka, Japan by the Osaka International Cancer Institute. They had over 7,000 Japanese adults that had tried for 2 years to use e-cigarettes to quit tobacco. And the conclusions of that study were that heated tobacco products do not help people quit smoking regular tobacco. They still show that they continue to use, and they're not recommended as a tobacco cessation device. Also, I heard on one of the other public meetings that you had talking about people requesting that hookah tobacco be exempt from the flavors ordinance, from the flavors ban. And, as far as cultural preservation, and Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and Kuwait have all banned hookah use. So if they're banning them in their own country, I don't feel like it's irresponsible to ban them here when it protects kids from becoming addicted to tobacco. and the entire Indian state of Delhi has also banned them. So that's something important to consider. I really feel that it's not good to delay these ordinances. We really need a comprehensive approach that would include the licensing with enough licensing fees to cover the cost of the program, because these people are profiting off the sale of tobacco, and much of that tobacco ends up in the hands of kids. I appreciate Mark Miller bringing up that sometimes it's brothers and sisters or the internet that brings tobacco to these kids. But if we ban the flavored products, then no one would be able to get them in Tempe, and that would help encourage other cities to follow suit. Every county in Arizona, all 15 counties, have a tobacco program, and they might be instrumental in helping to enforce this program. I am retired from the tobacco program in Flagstaff. I was a certified tobacco cessation specialist. I know that I've had people in my groups trying to quit e-cigarettes, and they are harder to quit than regular tobacco. Matter of fact, I don't know anybody that has been able to quit it that I had contact with, and I had contacts with hundreds of people over the time that I worked there. Every day, every single hour that we delay, more kids are becoming addicted to tobacco. And that is why the tobacco industry lobbyists are so adamant about delaying this process. And I think that we need to also address the fact in the cities that allow smoking in tobacco shops, that first responders have to go in there sometimes, police, fire, EMTs, other people that have to do inspections for the cities and the counties have to go into these places, and they become their workplaces. And I don't think it's fair to those people to have an exemption to allow smoking in smoke shops or vaping lounges. I think that it's really important that we ban them. We don't allow people to drink alcohol in liquor stores. We shouldn't allow people to expose workers in other venues like smoke shops or vape stores and or vape lounges. I think that's really important also. I think a lot of the kids that are older get the tobacco and they provide it to other kids, whether they sell it or however they give it to them. I'm really concerned that there's a lot of pressure to delay and probably weaken this ordinance. When good people do nothing, evil prevails. And I hope that there's enough good people in the city of Tempe that will stand up for this. I think it's really important to contact the school districts and the PTOs as stakeholders in this if they have not already become a part of this. And I think the city should reach out to them and ask their input. I was up here in Flagstaff when we were going through all our ordinances for smoke-free workplaces and the tobacco-free school district. And I know how this is being dragged on, but I think it's paramount to make sure that these people are recognized for what they're profiting off of, because they don't really care about kids. They sell them products that addict them and make them sick to their own profit. So I'm really in favor for getting this done quickly and raise the fees, raise the fines, pay for the program, let the people that are profiting pay for it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernice. Good comments. I did want to mention we're about 2 minutes out from what we're supposed to end, but I think it's important for everyone to hear everyone's comments. So I'd like to get through. I think there's 4 more folks that are queued up. I'd like to ask those folks to please provide their comments so everyone can hear them. But I also would ask a favor of you all, that you would try to make those comments as quick as possible. I'm willing, I think all of us are willing to stay several minutes after 1, but I just want to encourage us to try to be efficient with the comments. And I think we have 4 more.
Okay, Charlie Moses, you're next.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And don't worry, I have pared mine down to be 1 minute. I timed it. So I'm just going to rip right through it. I'm not saying anything new, but I just want to let you know who I'm representing. So for the record, my name is Charlie Moses. And thank you for making this time for us to offer these feedbacks and comments. So I'm here on behalf of Parents Against Vaping E-Cigarettes. We're a national organization with Tempe members and supporters, and we prioritize the health and well-being of youth in particular. And I'm a doctoral student. I research the public health impacts of youth substance use. That's kind of my bread and butter stuff. So we're in full support of a comprehensive tobacco seller license with effective enforcement, as well as a minimum age of purchase ordinance. And we understand that tobacco products are blatantly targeting youth. We all know this. We have the data now that over 50% of Tempe's tobacco retailers have issued citations for selling tobacco products to kids. So things need to change, and we need the combo of licensing and restriction to flavored tobacco products to address this epidemic and protect the health of Tempe's youth and the health of the greater Tempe community. And that's all I need to say. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then Channel Pal.
It's actually Chanel. Thank you so much, Shauna, Eric, and all the city staff that's on the call today. And thank you for the proposed ordinance. Although I want to say I am also with Flavors Hood Kids Tempe. I'm also a former school board member who took great concern with the smoking and vaping epidemic within our middle schools. Saw it firsthand, really becoming entrenched and becoming an epidemic starting at the 6th grade level. You know, public health should be of grave concern for public health officials. Health disparities do exist, and it should implore the Human Services and Safety Committee to spring into action. While licensing is a part of the strategic plan, it's only a part. Without establishing an end of the sale of flavored tobacco, you are ignoring the public health disparities. Big tobacco is an industry that has a long history of targeting communities like the Black community through the sale of their menthol products. This is a social justice issue. They've targeted our youth with over 200 highly addictive flavors that will likely hook our children for a lifetime. Over 85% of Black smokers smoke menthol, and that's no coincidence. 8 out of 10 of our youth says that flavored nicotine entices them, ultimately hooking them. The initial proposed ordinance language included establishing the end of the sale of flavored tobacco. What has changed? The city of Tempe must take bold action in addressing this as a public health crisis at the intersection of social justice and insert the language of prohibiting the sale of flavored tobacco. We cannot further delay this impetus. Many municipalities across the country have declared racism as a public health crisis. We would love to see Tempe act in such fashion. All flavors, all locations, all products. And I would encourage staff to perhaps glean from municipalities such as Boston, San Francisco, Minneapolis, and St. Paul. We must do everything that we can to encapsulate and to adopt this ordinance that should also include a PSA. Listen to our local school districts. Tempe Union High School District was already in the middle of litigation towards Jewel and is continuing their Vanish the Vape campaign. We need the Human Services and Safety Committee to recommend to City Council to put a restriction on all flavor sales of tobacco. Thank you.
Thanks, Chanel.
Okay, Stephanie Siete, you're next.
Thank you. Gosh, I'm not known for being brief. I'm going to do it. because a lot of it has been said, and like you said, we've been doing this for the last year and a half, but just to credential myself, I'm the public information officer for Community Bridges in the East Valley, focusing on behavioral health, saving lives, right? From all the substances that we're discussing and above. I represent Tobacco Free Kids, PAVE, the Tempe Coalition. I have a 20+ year career trying to save people and kids from substances. And I always just think it's ironic that my job started out doing tobacco education 20+ years ago. And I used to open up saying things like, good thing there's no such thing as liquid nicotine 20+ years ago, right? Because that would be so dangerous and poisonous to a kid. And now we know there's 2.5 million kids using, and there's thousands of flavors. And I read some of the comments here about, well, we've already educated the kids. I've been doing this for 20 years because we're going to keep having kids. There's always going to be kids. They're teenagers. They're their teen brains. They don't know any better. They get exposed. They're in the culture. They're in the throes of this. I think a business license is phenomenal. I'm proud of Tempe for wanting to start the process and the steps. But I mean, I had to jump in today, even though, like I said, I feel like we've stated a lot of it over and over. I just have to share that this morning, I'm waking up to text messages that are just to the point. How do we bust a smoke shop for selling to minors? That's one of my first texts in the morning from a mom. She's like, we fought this with my kid. I've sent my kid away and she cannot stop the nicotine. She stopped the other drugs, but she can't stop the nicotine. And then she sends me a picture of this Elf Bar strawberry ice vape that her 17-year-old's got. And again, it's kind of repetition, but for those that are saying things like, oh, we do fine them and we do stop them and we do card, I'm still getting parents that are saying we don't. I've still seen kids that are addicted. I've still got this is one example of 17-year-old kids saying, I want to stop. I'm trying to get her to come with me tonight. She knows she has a problem. And I told her voice is so much bigger than mine, just to show up and say, like, she's the one that's using, she's one that's giving money to this industry, but she doesn't want to do it. She's just lost control over it. So again, I applaud Tempe and the partners and everyone that's on here that's putting Tempe in the spotlight with other cities to start restrictions and business licenses. But the bigger picture is it's the youth that don't know any better. Us adults, we don't have excuses. We've lived lives. We should know better than making decisions. I think kids win every time over income. Right now, we're basically saying what's more important, money or health? I'm going to pick health every single time for kids and adults. And thank you for just making this an issue.
Thanks, Stephanie.
And then Paul Ulan, you'll close this out.
Oh, thank you. For the record, and I will be very brief, appreciate the time today. My name is Paul Ulan. I'm here today as the past chair of the board for the Arizona Business Education Coalition, statewide organization of business and educators advocating for public schools across the state, and here with support of the 3 school districts in Tempe. We support the proposed licensing ordinance, but we do recognize that this is just one small step in an effort to limit addictive and dangerous tobacco products to minors. We encourage the city council to take the next logical step and ban the sale of all flavored tobacco products within the city of Tempe. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul.
Okay,
Shauna.
Eric, that was it. If you want to close it out. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks everyone for taking the time to share your perspectives and comments on this. And again, the city, I know the city appreciates, and I know the council members really appreciate all of your engagement on this important issue. And please know that they are hearing everything and trying to do the best what they feel is best for our community. So we will continue this process. We have the public meeting in person tonight. Again, please go to the website. That's where you'll have all the latest information on where we're at with this with this proposal. Fill out the forum questions so that the council can get that, and then please stay engaged as we continue forward in the next several months. And again, thank you. So with that, I think we will close it out. Thank you.